It's a sad state when human beings call themselves civilized, moral, ethical, so-called leadership, so-called governmental body have become mental ill, self-driven egomaniacs, dictators of a falsehood of what you call a country. You call this country the leader of the known world. Its inception was a bald-faced lie. And it's about time that somebody had the fortitude. And you call yourself militia, you call yourselves patriots, call yourselves advocates of so-called democracy and freedom and equality, civil rights, and all this other bullshit that you just covered up decades and centuries. When you stoop so low that you take a child from off its mother's breast and deport that woman because she sought refuge from other dictator filth like yourself. America. America. You call this America. It will take thousands of children from their parents, deport their parents, leave the children in your fake ass America, false flag, terrorist regime, camps full of innocent children. You're not men and women. You're the filth, the sewage, and cesspool refuge of, because no human being would do such things. You talk about Israel, you talk about North Korea, you talk about Cuba, you talk about Russia, you talk about any other country, and you point fingers at their inhumane crimes. But what about your own? What about what you do? What about what you have done down through history for decades and centuries, and still doing the same thing in the Middle East and doing the same thing here in America with your gutless, cowardice filth, dressed in uniforms, calling themselves and shooting innocent people on the street like dogs. But yet and still, when somebody shoots you, you want the whole world to know and feel sorry. When someone buries one of you assholes, you want the world to be sorry. But for centuries, you killed innocent people like they were nothing. When you first brought your diseased white Europeans, uncivilized, barbaric asses over here, it's what you've done. It's what you always have done. You're not men. You're not women. You're animals from a jungle, from Spain and England. Royal filth, pedophile, child molester, rapist, religious oligarchs, reprobates, that you don't know, you couldn't tell a lie from the truth because your head is up your ass. Because you follow some infrastructure like the Vatican, who once again also hide their crimes because they're of their extreme wealth. Same thing like the central banks that own you, have owned you since after the Civil War. When so-called civilization deprives its elders, who are all intents and purposes are helpless, when a so-called civilization can poison innocent children that drink contaminated water, and you knew that water was contaminated for years. When a civilized so-called country can genocide innocent men, women, and children and don't have a conscience, and then take the same people that you pillage, rape, massacre, slaughter, and genocide, put them on slave camps called reservations. But you don't have a conscience. Somehow, there's nothing wrong with that. A civilized country that can fabricate an attack and blame people of color for that attack, knowing full well you did it, knowing full well that a Bush administration of 23 million deleted emails that nobody talks about. AIG just assassinated a group of people who were investigating their embezzlement of the vaults in the Twin Towers. But nobody talks about that. You have a Scottish family, piece of white supremacist, alt-right, neo-Nazi, Russian mafia, debt whores, money laundering, racketeering, real estate fraud, pimps, draft dodgers, tax evaders, but you're okay with that. But you have a Canadian president who has morals, who has ethics, who shows the world that they care about their elderly, they care about their children, they care about the families, they care about the working class. But somehow that is immoral to you. Why I call you inept, ignorant, reprobate, evangelical, chump, pansy, redneck, incest, inbred filth. Because you are brainless, you are heartless, you are soulless. Because any human being can do this to another human being. You're not human. You're a subculture. You're bottom feeders. You're the scum of the earth. Worthy of death. And you can see some sexual pervert, pussy grabber, xenophobic, misogynist, rapist, pervert, exploitation of women, hatred of women. But this is okay with you. Concrete evidence he colluded with Russia, was associated with Russia for over 20 some odd years, decades and centuries. And he lies redundantly, relentlessly, without a fault. A mental ill egomaniac that tweets like an adolescent high school girl, that has an attention deficit of a toddler, and the vocabulary of a 4- and 5-year-old. That even the leadership around the world mocks and makes fun of. But this is okay with you. And you know why this is okay with you? Because before you even came here, this European, diseased, white, inept, ignorant, uneducated, incest inbred filth, before you landed foot on the shores of America, this is where you came from. Because you came from the back alleyways, the gutters of Spain and England. They got tired of taking care of you. Because you were taken away from their wealth. You were taken away from their well-being, their self-preservation. So they packed your asses up, put your dumb asses on ships, and dumped you on the shores of the Americas. And nobody wants to hear this, but I don't give a shit. But I'm going to tell you anyway. But you never want to hear the truth anyway. That's why this orange-faced, fat-ass, McDonald-eating, uneducated, non-reading piece of illiterate shit can tell you anything and you believe it. A lie that he made the economy what it is, which any educated person, which a greater percentage of you inept, conformed, brainwashed, compliant sheep don't know that he's riding the skirt of the Obama administration. Because what the Bush and Cheney administration plummeted this country into an economical shithole that it took the first 4 years of his administration to clean that up. In the next 4 years, he made it what it is today. Or somehow you're going to give this reprobate, orange-faced, fat-ass, McDonald-eating, adolescent tweeting ass the credit, like you always do. White men taking credit from what a black man does. It's bad enough that you do these things to innocent men and women. But when you stoop so low, like the gutless, cowardice filth that you are, and you start doing it to children. If there's any mother and father out there, true mothers and fathers that is, who actually teach their kids any moral or ethical fiber, You will be appalled of what's going on in this country. You will be appalled of what's taking place against true humanity. And you have a bunch of terrorists, which they call themselves the Republican Party, of white supremacists, neo-Nazi, alt-right, or this assholes will never stand up for anything that is just or moral. Because just like the disease, incest, inbred filth from Spain and England, you are what you are, and you will never change. A pig is a pig. You can paint it any color that you want. It's still a pig, wallowing in its own shit. And that's what you're seeing right now in the White House. You can do whatever you want to do against each other, but when you start taking innocent children, putting them in camps, keeping them from their mothers and fathers and their family members, as they say, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. And then you have some piece of shit Supreme Court, Congress, Senate committee that you give more terrorists in blue, what you call cops, law enforcement, to shoot and ask questions later. Animals don't evolve. Animals always remain animals. And what's indicative of that is what we're facing today. That you're reverting right back to the Wild Wild West, where the fastest gun rules, where thieves, bandits were ruling the country. Big bank criminals, stealing land, pillaging, raping, murdering, slaughter, massacre. And it's exactly what you're doing today. Via this Scottish piece of shit Trump administration. And you have proof. You have people. Manafort, Cohen. You have people that you know that helped him to commit these crimes. The bankruptcy, the racketeering. Anybody who defrauds banks, anybody that doesn't pay back their loans, doesn't pay back their creditors, tax evasion, builds his criminal, fraudulent empire in other countries, used slave labor, used the mafia to build his infrastructures and his golf courses. You knew about this all along. It's not a surprise. So the innate part of this is you don't care. And the sad part of this, you dumbass so-called American citizens don't care. Because somehow you think a Russian mafia-owned debt goat, debt whore, and his family care about you. Show me anywhere in history where the extreme wealthy cared about anybody but themselves. You can't. You won't. But it doesn't exist. You live in a debt-based economy, based on worthless money, based on slave wages that'll never keep up with cost of living, the economy, inflation. And no matter how long you work, it will never be enough to live on. You gutted Social Security and Medicare because you just stole from it and never paid it back. Missing, and somehow that just got forgotten like it never happened. Or the 500 million that was stolen from the Red Cross. Somehow that happened, but it's forgotten. But a black man gets caught with a joint, you'll give him life in prison. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? But you got a so-called president who's a known thief, extortionist, real estate fraud, bank fraud, tax evasion, pussy grabber, rapist, pervert, sexually obsessed with his own daughter, incest inbred. But that's okay. Very epitome of uncivilized, barbaric heathen is what you're seeing right here today in 2018. We're not talking about Neanderthal men. We're not talking about cavemen. We're talking about so-called civilized men and women in Washington, D.C., in Capitol Hill, in Congress, and the Supreme Court, and lawmakers and legislators. When you reach the all-time low, that you start victimizing and exploiting young children, that should tell everybody out there, everybody around the world, this is no longer America. In fact, it never was. This is a terrorist regime. From the gutters, sewers, cesspools, and back alleyways of Spain and England. The same filth you see riding in carriages, the royal crowns on their head, royal marriages, giving birth to more barbaric, uncivilized filth. And you praise them. They're celebrities, just like your Vatican. More barbaric, uncivilized, religious reprobates, rapists, pedophiles, child molesters, for decades and centuries, and never served one day in jail or in prison. That's why your DOJ is a cesspool sewer of worthless shit. Because there is no laws in this country. If there were laws, criminals like your Donald Trump, criminals like your lawmakers, criminals like your pedophiles, such so-called laws. The Bushes would be in prison for killing innocent humanity over some fabricated bullshit of a terrorist attack. And you allow AIG, a bunch of embezzlers, to go free. this is the point. When pirates and thieves, barbaric heathens run a country, and not moral, ethical people, educated and civilized people that you genocide and stole their country from. I don't know about anybody else, but it's time to take up arms. It's time to put an end to this facade, to this inhumane, barbaric, uncivilized shit that's going on in this country. If you call yourselves true militia, if you call yourselves true humanitarians, if you call yourself true mothers and fathers, if you call yourself true citizens of the world, advocates, rebels, then you'll take up arms too and put an end to this shit. Democracy is dead. You have oligarchs. You have a oligarch, a criminal piece of Scottish shit, making a mockery of who you are if you call yourself educated, civilized human beings. And as long as you allow it to happen, you're as bad as he is. McConnell, Ryan, Republican Party, all you so-called conservatives, bunch of faggot, gutless, worthless pieces of shit that has no backbone, that you'll stand up against tyranny, that you stand up against a Russian mafia oligarch dictator, debt whore. You just let him get away with crime after crime after crime. If you're that gutless, won't you just tell Putin to come over here and become president? Or won't you tell the emperor from China to come over here and be president? Won't you tell Kim Jong from Korea to come over here and be president? If you love dictators, if you want to live in a dictatorship, because whether you know it or not, that's exactly what you're becoming. You're becoming a third world country. Every single day that all this debacle of humanity, this uncivilized, barbaric, heathen and shit takes place, that's exactly what it's becoming. A third world dictatorship. And you got this mental case adolescent tweeting, fat ass McDonald eating, non-reading incest idiot, turning it right into a dictatorship. So where is your CIA? Where is your NSA? Where is your so-called Homeland Security? Where is your so-called true law enforcement, your true FBI? Those who are supposed to represent justice and protectors of fake-ass America citizens. Your tails are between your legs, and you're running like sooner dogs down your rabbit hole of complacency, of incompetence, and cowards that you run and hide, just like you did when 9/11 occurred. I despise, I abhor gutless, cowardice men and women. Because you're the gutter filth of the earth. then you take that mentality and spread it against innocent people. Call yourselves Americans? You're not. You're gutless, colorless, racist, bigoted, uncivilized, barbaric filth. You have no backbone. You have no balls. You have no morals. No ethical code. No moral code. America died decades and centuries ago. I know.